What's going on, everybody? So this is Mike. You may have seen I posted on social media about maybe it was last week or the week before some info on a bird deal that we did, and I wanted to follow up with that with a video, give some more information, kind of clarify some stuff. I had a ton of people reach out actually interested in real estate, and it makes me so happy because that's why I want to share this information, right? I genuinely just want to, we've seen the power of real estate. We know what it can do, and I just want to help other people utilize it as a tool to try and achieve financial freedom. And it's a bit out of my comfort zone because if you know me, I'm not the flashy, I don't like to show off, right? So it's a bit out of my comfort zone to show some of this behind the scenes stuff. But like I said, I genuinely want to help, and to the point of not liking that stuff. I remember when Lauren and my wife Lauren, for those of you who may not know her, when we first started, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I specifically remember saying, I don't want to post anything on Facebook, on Instagram, whatever. I don't want anybody to know that we're doing anything with real estate. But like I said, we've obviously come a long way, and so I just want to try and help however I can. So what I plan on doing today is going a little more in depth into this property number 3 here in Old Arabi, kind of walking through some of the numbers, and then I want to show you guys the calculator that I use that I just kind of built that kind of analyzes things pretty quickly to say, off the gun before we put an offer in on whether or not it's a good deal, what kind of returns we're going to get and stuff like that. So this is the post that you may have seen, or part of the post that you may have seen, and then we'll kind of look behind the curtain a little bit more into what's going on with the Mealy project. So this is the calculator that I use. I just kind of built it from scratch or based off of a couple of others that people have sent out or let me use. I'm sure it's not perfect. If you see something that the math doesn't add up, please let me know. I'd love to know about it. But yeah, so this is kind of what we're looking at. Let me make sure you guys can see. It says I'm screen share. So, but yeah, so like I said, the calculator may not be perfect, but it seems to have been pretty accurate in my experience. Ultimately, I think any calculator is going to be as good as the numbers you put into it, right? So I'll kind of break down what I'm putting in, why I'm putting it there, and just kind of transparently open up the books and show you guys what this is going to look like short-term, long-term, and explain some of the biggest benefits and the reasons why I love real estate investing so much. So for this one on Mealy, it is 1,200 square feet, which is little. We did get the appraisal back at 165,000, which was awesome. So that comes out to about 137 a square foot. We picked it up for 79,900. We got this one, so I'm gonna skip forward in time because we went about this one in a very unconventional way. We found it through kind of a wholesaler. There's another investor who had it and decided they didn't want to mess with it, so they passed it on to us, and we were able to work out a bond for deed. And so it's very unconventional. So when I talk about financing and stuff like that, we'll skip ahead, right? We'll pretend like we bought it cash, fixed it up, and then did the standard BRRRR method, right? Buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. So it was a little bit convoluted. It would take too much time to explain all that. We do like to be creative in our financing and how we finance things. So not all of them are bought cash, but we're going to end up here in the next 5 months refinancing it into a 30-year conventional, traditional mortgage. Right now we have it in a commercial 20-year amortized mortgage. But like I said, here in about 5 months, that'll be refinanced into a conventional. So if you want more details on all that other stuff, shoot me a message, shoot me a text, call me, whatever. I'll happily give you the story. But for the sake of this, let's just pretend like it was the standard, BRRRR method, right? So purchase price, $79,900. The renovation, we're still finishing things up. It's looking like $45,000 is going to be pretty accurate. So we'll see. But I was hoping for 40. We've certainly crept over that. I'm just hoping we don't push it anything past 45. Timeline, I think 3 months is still going to be pretty accurate. This financing cost that I have in here, we did use a little bit of hard money, or private money, I should say, on this one. We pay for our investors, we pay 12% interest-only payments every month. So for this one, it was more of for me and a new investor to kind of get associated. So it was a $10,000 loan. So this is 10,000, 12% interest divided by 12 is like $100 monthly that we pay. So if the renovation's 3 months, the money's out 3 months, we will have paid $300 for that. Utilities, I'm estimating around 600. Closing costs were actually $35.50. Just checked. So our all-in cost for this one was $129,353. So when we look at the loan, the next section of this calculator is the loan info. So again, this isn't accurate as of right now, but let's make a couple of assumptions, fast forward and say we're 6 months from now, and we've had a chance to refinance into a conventional loan. So that refi loan amount on a duplex or more than one door, they're going to do 75% of the appraised value, right, which is at 165. Hopefully that appraiser comes back out in a couple months and maybe it went up from 165, but we'll just assume it stays the same. So they'll do 75% of that, which means, and this is estimate, right, 30 years, I'm estimating 3.5 interest, hopefully a little bit lower. And then there's the calculator's all built in where it figures out the monthly payments and all that, which is kind of neat. But we'll fast forward for a second down here to cash left in the deal. Ignore this because it's more for ones where we're actually going through the numbers of how much cash we're gonna have to bring up front, which for this one was substantial. I think I needed $10,000 for the down payment for that bond for deed, roughly, and then we had to cover the renovation, 55 minus the money we borrowed. So we actually put a lot of cash up front into this one. Luckily, we worked with the bank to get most of that back relatively quick. But so at the end of the day, once the dust settles, once we refinance, we'll have left in $5,600 in this deal, which is phenomenal, right? Obviously, the BRRRR method, the strategy, hopefully you try and pull all your cash out every time. It's just not, in my experience, realistic, right, or possible every time. So the less you can leave in, the better, for me personally. So $5,600, I'm very happy with that, right? Compared to a down payment, if someone else would have fixed this up, listed on the market and wanted to buy it, so that would be what, 165 times, oops, that's not right, 20%. Versus conventional, would be $33,000 that I'd be leaving in the deal if we just bought it off the MLS, right? So, so 5,600 left in. After monthly mortgage, that's at a 30-year. Taxes and insurance, total payment will be around $800 a month. I always keep this in here. This is a cool little section. So when we work with the commercial lenders, it's not just, so if you go buy a house, right, they look at your debt to income ratio, your income, they look at your tax returns. Everything is about you personally. How can you personally pay this loan? And what's the bank's level of confidence? When it comes to a lot of these commercial loans, they look primarily at the property itself. Can this property hold its own weight? And then if it can't, or the bank isn't confident, then they'll look at my personal finances as well. So for this as a ratio, this CADS ratio, or cash available debt servicing, is a ratio they use to determine if the property can carry its own weight, right, hold its own water. So what they do is they take this cash available, which means the annual income minus it's like 8% for repairs, 25% for expenses, which includes, I think, taxes, insurance, and then another like 5% for management fees. So you have cash available, then you divide it by your annual debt servicing, which is just the monthly mortgage cost, not including taxes and insurance in here. So you divide that by that, and again, if anybody wants the specifics, let me know. We can talk offline. But so basically, you divide your cash available by your annual debt servicing, and you get this number here. The magic number here is 1.25. So I have this built in to where if, and I can't remember if I mentioned, but all those expenses minus the annual rent, right? So annual rent minus those 8%, 25%, 5%. Is how you come up with this. So they want to see 1.25. 1.25 or above, the bank generally feels pretty confident, or at least the one that I deal with. I can't speak for all of them. They usually feel pretty confident that this thing's going to hold its own weight. If it's below that, then they'll need to start looking more into our personal income, assets, etc. So you'll see, let's say I changed the monthly rent total down here. If I change that, let's say we were only getting $1,000 a month, it's going to drop it to a little conditional formatting is broken. That's supposed to turn red. But either way, so you'll see that that ratio changes, right? So that's what that CADS is. If you're doing a conventional 30-year mortgage like the one we're talking about here, this is completely irrelevant for the most part. So then I have it broken down if we were to flip it versus if we were to BRRRR it and keep it. So if we were to flip, it's pretty simple, right? We would pay. Since I have a real estate license, I assume for the ones here in the New Orleans area that I'm going to list it myself. So I calculate out the other agent's fees in there. We usually plug in assuming they're going to want some kind of closing costs, or they're going to want something at inspection, something like that, right? So we pre-plug numbers in just in case, but hopefully we try to minimize that as best as possible. And then so there'd be a profit. Now with this one, this is irrelevant. I'm not going to sell this place. I've been wanting to invest in old Arabi since day one. So you would have to pry this out of my cold dead fingers. This one here, and if we did sell, it would be significantly more than 165. People would think I was a crazy person for the price. Like there's no way I'd sell this for less than 200,000, and I doubt anybody's going to buy it for 200,000. So we'll be keeping this one for quite a while. So this is really what we're looking at here, right? So monthly rental income, I have here, I'm thinking we're going to do $950 on one side, $850 on the other side, which gives us $1,800 bucks. For a BRRRR, something with a lot of with a big rehab, I'm fine with 20% for repairs, vacancy, capex. I know there's going to be people that'll tell you that's too low, and they may be right. But for this one, almost everything's brand new, from the AC systems to the refrigerators. Literally everything is brand new for the most part. So our repairs are going to be a little bit lower. We still want to set money aside for capex and vacancy, but vacancy, from what we've seen in St. Bernard Parish, is banana. Like the rental demand here is bananas. We have people, I'm not exaggerating, I've posted a fourplex that we have, a rental or a unit for rent fourplex, and I think I had 75 people reach out on Facebook. It's bananas. And it's not like it was exceptionally cheap, maybe slightly below market rent, but so vacancy isn't going to be as high. Property management, 10%. Something to note here too, even if so I self-managed everything the first probably 4 years that we started, but I've always calculated in this 10%, because just this year, 2021, we decided to hand over the keys for almost everything to a property manager, and the numbers still have to work, right? Even if you plan on self-managing, always bake in that 10%, because at some point you're going to want to hand those keys over. You're not going to want to get the phone calls at midnight because somebody crashed through the fence, or while you're on vacation because one unit flooded the other one. Yeah, at some point you're going to want to hand that off. So always bake in that 10%. So our net monthly cash flow for this one, once it's finished, once we get tenants in and get it leased out, will be around 462. Currently, like I said, with our 20 year at 4.65, the numbers aren't as good, 225. But like I said, we'll fast forward and pretend like this is 6 months from now. Excuse me. So that gives us 462 in cash flow, which is good. The number I shoot for that I don't always accomplish is 200 per door after everything's done. If you can hit 200 per door after all of this is accounted for, you're doing fine. You're doing great. And this one hits it, so I'm extremely happy. And honestly, most of the time, the only way to hit that is buying at the right price, right? So and I guess I'll take a minute to say too, even if this number isn't fantastic now, it's a long-term play, right? Like real estate is not a get-rich-quick thing. You're not going to all of a sudden turn around and have boatloads of money. But the benefits come in exponentially over time, right? This mortgage payment here, this $797, if I don't refinance it, if I don't do anything else, right, that's going to stay locked in for 30 years, right? 5 years from now, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, but 5 years from now, right, the annual cash flow is $15,000 because rent's going to keep going up every single year, but that mortgage is locked in unless you refinance, pull cash flow, do whatever, right? So even if that number isn't absolutely amazing, if you're only doing 150 a door, or I mean, whatever, right? I won't get into what you should take, but just know rents historically have always gone up. Net cash flow annually, it's just that times 12. So here's kind of the nerd data that I really enjoy. My wife always makes fun of me because I like the numbers and she kind of glazes over. But yeah, so annual profit 5,500. Now what's cool about the BRRRR strategy? So let's say, let me go through it first. What's cool about the BRRRR strategy is, look at this. So years to break even cash wise, 1 year. So after 1 year's profit pays for the amount of cash that I left in it, right? This cash left in $5,600. So I'm leaving $5,600 of my own cash left in it. And after 1 year, I'm getting all that money back, right? That's assuming it's setting money aside for repairs, vacancy, things that could go wrong. So yeah, it's possible something big could go wrong, eat all that up plus more, and this wouldn't be the case, right? But on average, this should be pretty right. Equity, almost 36,000. And then this is where it starts getting really cool. So cash on COC ROI here is cash on cash. So cash on cash, return on investment is 90, 99, almost 100%, which is bananas. So what this is, and honestly, this isn't even telling the full story because this is the total annual profit, right, divided by the money I have, or maybe I'm flipping it around, right? It compares the total amount of cash that I have in and the amount that I make in that first year in cash flow. And it's 99%. What that's not including is mortgage pay down. And I plan on doing a separate video that talks about the main benefits of real estate. But just to give you an idea, this is not including the fact that as a tenant's paying rent, I'm paying down the mortgage, I'm gaining more equity every single month, right? So it's not including mortgage pay down. It's not including the tax breaks that we're going to get, that we're probably going to pay virtually no taxes on this income because of depreciation. We can write off the expenses, yada, yada, right? And then third, it's not taking into account appreciation, which I don't like to bank on, right? Because you never know, the market could go down, maybe things flatten out, maybe it doesn't appreciate, but historically it has. So this isn't taking any of that into account, which would bump this number up significantly, right? Let's see, NOI, that is your net operating income, which is used to determine the cap rate. Cap rate's interesting if it's a single family, So for GRM, cap rate's a whole thing, but if you Google, it's basically what's the return you would have gotten if you paid cash for this, if I had to explain it very simply. But 9 something cap rate is really good. GRM is gross rent multiplier. There's a really good book that I wish I had handy. It's probably somewhere on the bookshelf back there, called Investing in Duplexes, Triplexes, and Quads on Amazon. Let me know if you want it and I can send it over to you, but it's really good. He first introduced me to GRM, and it's really cool because it's a way to calculate value based on rental income, right? So we'll have to do a whole separate thing. I won't go too far into that, but essentially as you get more, not so much for doubles, once you get into more units, commercial properties, the value is much more swayed by the amount of income it produces rather than price per square foot, like your traditional real estate or residential real estate, I should say. So GRMs, the way I understand it, kind of in that middle ground, right? It shows your value based on the rent you bring in. So let's say, we'll use this for example, ignore this for now, but so let's say the market GRM for that part of Arabi right there was 9, right? Based on $1,800 a month, it would be worth $195. The problem is appraisers don't always use this as much as I would like to use, right? They usually use a combination of GRM, price per square foot, other factors, right? But just looking at it purely from this perspective, so it shows the power of the income of the property. So instead of, let's say, $1,800, if I were to, and this is not realistic, but let's say I was getting $2,500 a month, it would bump that price up to $270 significantly, right? So it's one way that as you're looking at things that you can add value to, you can add value not just to the structure, but as you find something that the rents are lower than they could be, right? You raise the rents up slightly, and it's going to bring the value up with it. So that's all that. Then we have future projections. So this is where it gets exciting, right? Like I said, real estate is very much a long-term play. In my opinion, it's a long-term play, right? Yeah, you can flip houses, but that's transactional, right? Yeah, you can, you flip this house, you make 20 grand, awesome, you have an extra 20 grand. But then what does that do, right? You could continue to flip them, right? But it's transactional. But in my opinion, the way wealth is truly built through real estate is long-term rental properties, right? Or income-producing properties, I should say. So we'll forecast out 5 years down the road from when we purchase this place. So 5-year cash flow projection. So this is saying that I'm not refinancing anything like that. 5 years down the road, the rents are going to increase 3% each year, right? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's only 2, maybe it's 4, whatever. I think 3% is right around inflation, so it's probably a pretty solid guess. But even if 2%, it's not going to make over time a huge difference. Like I said, I usually do 3 to 4%. You plug in, whatever number your research tells you to. So 3% inflation per year gives us $15,472 in annual cash flow compared to the $5,500 we're making now. Because remember, rent's going to go up every single year, but our mortgage payment is staying exactly the same. 5-year equity position. So we're assuming, I think, normally I plug in, and there's probably, for you Excel gurus, don't judge me too hard. I'm sure there's a better way to do this than I have here. I just don't know it. So if you know a better way, a simpler way to do this, I'm sure there's a way. Just shoot me a message, let me know. But so for this one, I plugged in 5% inflation because of the area. Because Old Arabi is such a small, desirable, high demand area. I plug in 5%. Normally, I'll do 3 or 4%, right? Which I think, again, inflation. So it's a pretty, I think, a pretty good estimate. So 5-year equity position is value plus inflation over the next 5 years minus what we owe on the loan. And I simplified it to 90% of that, right? I don't know if you guys can even see up here, but I simplified it to 90% of that as I'm going through and playing with the numbers on like the amortization calculators and all. It generally in 5 years will pay off about 10% on a 30-year loan. Maybe I'm off a little bit. That's fine, right? For the sake of this, it's just projection. So it's probably going to be off a little bit, no matter how perfect my numbers are. But so I'll do, like I said, value plus appreciation per year minus 90% of what I currently owe, right? Which would put me at just shy of 100,000. So then if you add up the equity plus if you kept all of the profit, all the cash flow from every single year from that property, your total benefit, your total return profit, if you sold it at 5 years, would be $176,000. Which, like I said, it's long term. And this number gets exponentially better as time goes on. So if you look at this from 5 years to 10 years, 10 years to 20 years, it's just that much better. And there's different strategies, right? Different opportunities. So maybe it's better to sell and go from 2 to 4 and then from 4 to 8, right? There's all these different strategies in real estate. But in general, the point I'm making is just that it's a long-term play. So there you have it. That's Mealy. I want to start doing more of these. I hope these are beneficial, valuable, because my goal in all this is to show people what it's really like, right? Because you watch HGTV, you see these knuckleheads on Instagram that are talking about how they made $100,000 on this flip, and Tarek and whatever their name is, they make like 100 grand every time, and it's preposterous. Maybe they do, but it's silly. So I just wanted to show kind of behind the scenes of what it actually looks like. And some of y'all may look and say, oh, wow, that's great. I want to get into it. And some of you may say, well, oh, you're not making 100 grand each time. It's not for me. That's perfect, right? But so I just wanted to show, and you look at it and say $462 a month after everything's paid, it's not that much. And it's not, right? It certainly takes volume and time before it starts to make a difference, and it's a long-term play. Like, I've probably said it 5 times. Real estate is very much a long-term play. So if you're looking for get rich quick, I know there's people on your feed that are selling multi-level marketing. Maybe that's more what you're looking for. But to me, you can't beat real estate when it comes to the means or the ability for a average working class person like me and like many of you guys, right, to build wealth. There's, in my opinion, and you'd have to show me some strong data to convince me otherwise, there is no better vehicle to help the average person become wealthy. And not to say that Lauren and I are wealthy, we're certainly not there yet, but that's the goal, right? Hopefully one day we will be, and we certainly started with, man, I tell you, we'll have to do a whole separate thing on this, but I think we started, we bought the first double with we had like 5 grand. We had like maybe an IRA with a couple thousand or something like that, but we had very little, like we weren't making a ton of money. And that's the thing. That's what I love about real estate. Anybody can do it. Anybody's willing to work hard and put in the time and energy and effort and learn and be disciplined with your finances. Anybody can do it. So this is absolutely not a, hey, look at me, look what I'm doing. It's a, let me help, show you the background, show you what it looks like. And if there's any way that I can help beyond that, let me know. I'm an open book. So for those of you still watching, this ended up being a good bit longer than I expected. But I hope it's helpful. I hope you took one thing away from it that was beneficial. And if there's anything that I can expand on or do a better job of explaining, let me know. And if there's anybody who knows more than I do, which there certainly are, if some of these numbers don't look right, or if I'm not calculating something right, or if my calculator's wrong, let me know as well, because I want to keep growing. So thanks again. Hope this was helpful, and I'll talk to y'all soon.